Welcome back to the Makko AI Interactive Visual Novel series. The goal of this series is to show you how to build an interactive visual novel using Makko AI. By the end of this series, you will know how to create a full game with multiple scenes and branches, custom backgrounds, custom animations, and how to debug common issues along the way. These episodes are meant to show you how AI game development is more of a brick-by-brick approach, overcoming any problems you encounter along the way, rather than telling AI what you want your end goal to be and expect it to be done all at once. In the last episode, we went ahead and implemented our custom story into our game, ensured that all the mechanics of our scene structure worked the way that we wanted them to, and added our first custom background. In this episode, we will be implementing 3 new scenes into our game with custom backgrounds, as well as show you how to add your character sprites and animations into your scenes. Let's get started. If you've been following along with your own project, you should now have the first scene completed. The story and choices should be appearing and working as intended. To add our second scene, we will go into AI chat and use plan mode. In the prompt, we tell Makko, I want to add the next scene in our game with scene ID scene 2. Tell me what you need for me to get this done. Makko will analyze our scene structure and ask us for all the required information that it needs to implement our new scene. As always, answer all the questions in the order that it asks you for. You see here that for question 2, it asks us about the background image we want to display. Ensure that your background is added into the project or add it if you haven't yet, and then give it the name of the image. Once you provide all of the details, enter the prompt. Be sure to read through the overview that Makko gives you before creating its plan and ensure that nothing is missing or incorrect. If everything looks good, tell Makko just that. Do the same with the plan it presents you with and press approve once you're ready to implement the plan. Once it is done with the task, we can now check out our new scene. We are able to see that our scene 1 now points to scene 2 and that the background, story, and choices load up correctly. We can now repeat the process for scene 3 and 4. AI chat, plan mode, ask Makko what it needs, provide it what it needs, and let it implement it into our game. This is where it should start being apparent how important all of the work that we did in the first 2 episodes actually was. We set the foundation of our game so well that it is now a repeatable process to add new scenes into our visual novel. And because we debugged all of the core mechanics during our first scene, we shouldn't run into any major issues while doing these steps. When adding scene 3, we did run into a little syntax error with the background name, which we were able to fix by going into the file and ensuring that the name matched the one that our code was referencing. When editing any files on Makko, ensure that you save the file at the top right. This is something that can easily be missed. Once that was done, I was able to verify that the bug was fixed by checking our updated game. Once you get the hang of the questions that Makko asks of you for each scene, you can even stop using plan mode and move to fast mode since you already know what you want Makko to do and what it needs it to get done. This will help you speed up the process of adding more scenes into your game. For scene 4, this is exactly what I do. We ran into another naming issue with the background for scene 4, but this time we use the same AI chat to solve the problem and tell Makko to change the background to the background ID we see in our code. Once we update the game, we can see that our scene 4 is working as intended now. One change that I want to add to our game, especially as we start adding character sprites, is that I want the aspect ratio to remain the same throughout any screen resizing. Because this is a change that might cause issues in our game, I want to ensure I make a save point here that I can come back to if our game breaks. To do this, go to the State Management tab and add a new manual save. As you can see, Makko creates automatic saves for plan mode and quick action prompts. Manual saves are a good addition to this because it allows us to control what point in time we want to save our progress, which is exactly what we want to do before a possible game-breaking change to our game. Ensure you provide a good checkpoint name and description that clearly lets you know where you are in your game. This becomes extra important as you start to have multiple saves. Once you do that, we can continue working on our aspect ratio change. Because we know what we want, we will use fast mode. Once there, I tell Makko, I want my game to maintain a 1920 by 1080 aspect ratio regardless of the screen size of the user. The background should always look full and the UI should be within the confines of the background. Once that task is complete, we see that our updated game now maintains the aspect ratio that I was looking for regardless of how tall or wide our screen size is. Now that we have scenes 2 to 4 working with custom background, story, and choices, it is time to start adding our sprite characters and animations into our game. The great thing is, if you don't know what characters you want to add to your story or what fits the scene you're working on, you can ask Makko to analyze the scene you want to work on and it will give you suggestions based on what it thinks fits the scene. To showcase this, I use fast mode and ask Makko, analyze the narrative text for scene ID scene 2 and tell me what character sprites you think would make this scene feel alive. After Makko analyzes the scene, it made the following suggestions as to the characters and animations we can add to our scene to make the story feel alive. An elderly woman that is the main NPC with multiple animations that make her feel like she's interacting with the player, a few types of merchants to show the market busy with activity, a few children to add liveliness and innocence to the scene, and a few townsfolk to fill the crowd. If we go back to our scene 2 and read the narrative text, we see that these suggestions fit the scene and the atmosphere. These suggestions look great to me, and they even include the animations that each character should have. To take it even a step further and start working on these animations, we can have Makko give us prompts to create the characters and animations it describes. To do so, I tell Makko, these are really good suggestions. I want you to help me come up with prompts that I can use for each character so I can create them in Sprite Studio using AI. For each character that you describe, give me a character name, a description/prompt to generate the character image, and a prompt for each of the animations you suggested adding to our scene. As you can see, this generated a lot of prompts for this scene, which we don't want to lose. I tell Makko, in order not to lose these prompts and information, please create a temporary Markdown file called Scene 2 Character Sprites and Animations with all of this information you just provided me so I can reference it as I create these animations. Once it creates that file, we can verify that it was done by finding the file and opening it up. Here you can see all of the prompts are there, ready for us to use. If you did the same thing for your game, you can now pause here and start creating all of those characters and animations and come back once you are ready to add them to your scene. To save some time, we are skipping over how to take these prompts and create characters and animations in Sprite Studio, but if you do need help with that, we have some great tutorials on how to use Sprite Studio and create character sprites and animations here on this channel. Some of those will be linked in the description below and should appear somewhere in the screen here. For this episode, we will show you how to implement the main NPC into our game. First thing to do is add the character to the project. Do so by going to the asset library, finding your character, and adding it to the project. Then we can jump back into AI Studio and tell Makko we are ready with our character. Since we want help knowing how to best implement our character and animations, we want to use plan mode to brainstorm with Makko. Our prompt here is, I have a character and its animations ready to be added to scene ID scene 2. Help me think through how to best add my animations into the scene to make this look cool. After Makko analyzed our system, it asked questions about the visuals and compositions, animation timing and behavior, interactive feel, and scope and constraints. Like always, ensure that you answer these questions to the best of your ability. Our answers focus on explaining how we want our characters to interact in the scene and where they will be placed. Since we want to work with Elder Alara first, that is what a lot of our answers are focused on. Once you answer the questions, Makko will give you a design overview that you need to read through to ensure that it matches your vision. If it all looks good to you, tell Makko just that and it will generate the plan to implement these changes into the game. If the plan looks good, press approve and it will make the changes. After the tasks were complete, we rebuild our game and we see that no animations appear when we reach the scene. In a new fast mode AI chat, we tell Makko, I do not see any animations in scene 2. Analyze what is the problem and fix it. After its analysis, Makko sees that our index.html file was missing the scene's animations JSON file. So to solve the issue, Makko will add the missing script tag for the scene's animation file so that they render in our game. Once the fix is complete, we can now see our animation in our game and our Elder Alara is now walking towards us as the scene progresses. We also see a copy of our character casually strolling in the background, and if we see Makko's response, we see that there was a second character added to the background continuously idling, which is something that we want to remove. To do so, we tell Makko, I see 2 instances of Elder Alara on scene 2. I only want to keep the one that walks towards the user and does the talking animation. The other one is not necessary. Remove the unwanted animation. Once it completes the task and we rebuild our game, we can see our scene now only shows the animations we want to see. The final thing we want to do here is adjust the starting and ending points of our animations so that it follows the path that we want for this character. To do so, we will be using debug boxes around the start and end positions of our sprites so that we can know the coordinates and scale of each point and adjust these coordinates in our game. There are various ways to tackle this issue of character positioning, and this is a more advanced method of doing so. The easiest way to do it would be to tell Makko to move the starting and ending position slightly in any directions until it matched our vision. While that approach is easier, it can also take longer. The debug box method is more advanced, but it allows us to get this done a lot quicker and with higher precision. The easiest way to do that is using fast mode and telling Makko, add debug boxes to the start and end positions of our animations so we can edit where our animations start and end. Once Makko runs through that task and we rebuild our game, we see that we now have a start and end box for our Elder Elara character, showing where it starts and where it ends. In order to adjust the animations though, we will need these boxes to be interactable. To do this, we tell Makko, make the start and end boxes draggable/resizable and list coordinates so I can give them to you. Log whenever the coordinates change. This will allow us to edit the positioning of our animations to exactly where we want them to be. Once that is implemented, we can see that the debug boxes can now be dragged around the screen and that the coordinates are being logged for us to see. To ensure that the debug box's coordinates match the coordinates of our animations, we want to tell Makko, align the anchor points of the animations with the middle bottom of the debug squares. The next step to help us visually see the changes of our positioning is to tell Makko, attach the character to the start and end boxes as I move them around. This will ensure that when we move the start box, we update and see the initial starting position of our animation, and when we move the end box, we update and see the final position of our animation. Once we rebuild our game after this change, we do see that changing the start and end boxes change its size and positioning. One thing that is still not working as intended is that the animations are not scaling properly as we shrink and expand the debug boxes. This is an issue with our animation alignment. To fix this, we have to go to Sprite Studio, click on our animation, click on Animation Alignment tool, and select the two animations that we want to align. Here we see that our animations were not aligned at all, so we want to fix this so that they align in our game. Once you are satisfied with the alignment, be sure to press save at the top right. One crucial mistake that I made here is that I did not update the character sprite in our project, so when we went to rebuild our game, our animations were still unaligned. And that is because it was still using the old character manifest and not the updated one we just aligned. I didn't realize my error until after the recording, but here is what it will look like if you do update the character in your project. We were still able to get the coordinates for the start and end positions of our unaligned character from our log and give them to Makko like this. Change the starting coordinates of Elder Elara to x equals 0.8766 and y equals 0.0618 and scale equals 0.3515. Change the ending coordinates of Elder Elara to target x equals 0.7348 and target y equals 0.5815 and target scale equals 1.0. If this new animation looks good to you, you can tell Makko, the animation looks great, please remove the debugging boxes now. If the animation is still not exactly what you want, continue moving the boxes around and update the coordinates. And just like that, we have now implemented our custom character and animations into our scene and ensured that it looked exactly how we wanted to. You now have the skills necessary to implement all of your animations into your game and place them exactly where you want. With the skills you have learned in the last 3 episodes, you should now be able to build a comprehensive visual novel game using AI. Thank you for tuning into this series, and if you have been following along and have a game that you are proud of, publish it on Makko and share your link in the comments for the rest of us to check out. We would love to see all of the cool visual novels that you guys have all created. If you want to see more content like this, be sure to like and subscribe to the channel to continue growing as an AI game developer.